Today, on the eve of yet another masterclass, I thank CCI for creating such a vibrant academic social platform. The unique thing about the CCI is the mixture of exuberant youth and sublime seniors, which gel as a family. Also important is the sharing their ideas without inhibition. I thank Dr. Krishna for such an idea. And not to miss the other pillars of CCI, Dr. Narayan Pradeep, Dr. Ravi Dosi, Dr. Narendra, Dr. Vijay, and many more names which can go on and on. Today we have a very young and experienced at the same time, a rare combination, Dr. Bala Raju with us. He will speak on rigid bronchoscopy essentials and 10 different techniques to retrieve foreign body. Indeed a difficult topic which will be made very easy by Dr. Bala Raju. I am confident we all will be wiser after this class. Over to Dr. Bala.
Many thanks, Gaurav, for the kind introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. N.H. Krishna, Dr. Vijay, Dr. Narendra, and Ravi Dose for giving me an opportunity to speak in CCI Masterclass. So this is what we are going to do in another 45 minutes of time. The first part would be we are covering the essentials of rigid bronchoscopy, followed by different techniques of airway foreign bodies. Greetings from Visakhapatnam. It's an eastern city in India. So this is what the agenda would be for rigid bronchoscopy essentials. We're going to start with a simple introduction with history and introduction, followed by indication, contraindication, and complications. So what are the different instruments used in rigid bronchoscopy, how to set up a rigid bronchoscopy system, and the intubation techniques, and with a few case examples. So it all started with Dr. Gustav Killian, where he has removed an airway foreign body way back in 1890 with a rigid bronchoscope. So he is considered as the father of bronchoscopy. And we all know the pioneer work done by Dr. Chevalier Jackson. He is an ENT surgeon from US, where he has designed a dedicated rigid bronchoscopy, a distal illuminating rigid bronchoscope, where removed many foreign bodies in the airway. Mary Capello has written a book called Swallow, where the different foreign bodies have been documented. So coming to the main person, Dr. Jean-Francois Dumont, in our time, where he has pioneered work in rigid bronchoscopy from Marseille, France. So he has three main things for his credit. So he's the first chest physician to design a dedicated rigid bronchoscopic system, where he has integrated different types, different sizes of rigid bronchoscopy with a single universal adapter. And he has pioneered work on lasers in airway, and also has designed a dedicated silicone stents called Dumont stents. So what are the indications of rigid bronchoscope? We all know it all started with the foreign body retrieval, so the main indication, followed by anything obstructed in the airway. It is an indication for removal. Rigid bronchoscopy has a major advantage, like removal of blood clots, thick mucus plugs. I'm going to show one case example where rigid bronchoscopy was really a game changer in that case. And also, if there is obstruction with a tumor or a stenosis, rigid bronchoscopy is used for tumor debulking or to dilate the stenosis. So you have other therapies like hot and cold therapies in the airway, cryo, APC, laser. So rigid bronchoscopy is used as a conduit to perform these procedures. Basically, why? Because of very good airway control. And if you want to place silicone stents in the airway, you require a rigid bronchoscopy. Silicone stents cannot be placed with a flexible bronchoscope. And also, rigid bronchoscopy is used as a conduit in many procedures like transbronchial cryolung biopsy or EVAS, because it is a better airway control than with the AT tube when doing a flexible bronchoscopy. So what are the contraindications? The main contraindication would be cervical spine related issues, where you can't do a neck extension. That will be an absolute contraindication. Other relative contraindications will be uncontrolled coagulopathy, tracheal obstruction with a novice operator. So what are the main complications? The main complication is mechanical injury, either injuring teeth and gums during intubation, and also injury to the trachea or bronchus causing tears, causing mediastinal emphysema and hemorrhage, and thereby causing severe bleeding. So these are the main complications of rigid bronchoscopy. So what are the different instruments we use for rigid bronchoscopy? Obviously, we require a rigid bronchoscope. They come in two types. One is a tracheoscope and a bronchoscope. We'll come to it later. And also we require some kind of visualization where you require an optical telescope and bronchoscopic access like forceps, suction, all these catheters. So rigid bronchoscopy can be used with ventilation, like you can do a jet ventilation. Also, you can use bag and mask ventilation. Sorry, jet Bain ventilation. So other instruments which aid perform rigid bronchoscopy are hot and cold therapies like laser APC. So coming to the rigid bronchoscopy instrument proper. So basically it is a straight hollow metal tube available in different sizes. External diameter vary and also length will vary. It varies from 5 to 16 mm and the wall thickness vary from 2 to 3 mm. So if you come to the distal end, the distal end is beveled, which facilitates intubation by lifting the epiglottis and also used for pouring of the airway tumors. And the proximal end, so this is the proximal end. So this is the proximal end where you have different connectors, one for suction ports or instrument channels and another for ventilation. You can use a Bain ventilation or a jet ventilation, and the main straight port where you can pass the telescopes. So this is the proximal part of the rigid bronchoscope. This is the distal part of the rigid bronchoscope. What you are seeing, these holes are the ventilating side ports. So there are three main different systems available. One is Effer-Juma, Duto, and the Stodd system. These are the main three different bronchoscopes available for us. So there are few differences between three main things. So first, the main difference between a bronchoscope and a tracheoscope is this. Whereas for a bronchoscope, you have this side ventilating ports, whereas a tracheoscope, you don't have the ventilating ports. That's the main difference. The diameter, the proximal and the distal portion almost looks the same. So there are some advantages between Duto bronchoscope or an Effer-Juma bronchoscope or a Stodd bronchoscope. So in these two bronchoscopes, the proximal end remains the same and the distal end can be changed according to the size used. Whereas in a Stodd bronchoscope, you have a fixed portion, proximal and distal. You have to change the different scopes. And it comes with different accessories like telescope, jet ventilation adapters, suction ports, and also comes with different sizes of bronchoscope and tracheoscopes. So to perform stent insertion, you have stent delivery systems. So this is the optical telescope where a long straight tube where the glass cylinders are inside this. This is the light connector for the optical telescope, and this is the visualization where you can attach the camera. So if you integrate the optical telescope with the forceps, now it becomes an optical forceps where you can work and also see at the same time. So it comes in different types that will come to it later. So this is the pediatric rigid bronchoscopy set. It almost looks the same except the size. So also we require some visualizing techniques, and also require monitors, light source and camera systems where you can see and record the procedures. You require the flexible bronchoscope where rigid bronchoscopy used as a conduit. You require a flexible bronchoscope to perform cryolung biopsy or any kind of procedures, debulking or any kind of procedures. You require a bronchoscope, video monitors. So these are the main things we need to understand while intubating a person with the rigid bronchoscope. There are three main axes in the airway. The first axis is the oral axis. So the axis in the mouth is called the oral axis. The second axis is the pharyngeal axis. That's the axis of the pharynx. And the third axis is the laryngeal inlet axis. That's the laryngeal axis. When the person is normal, lying down supine, with head in neutral position, all three axes are in different position. They are not in parallel to each other, where intubation is very difficult. So what happens if you just do head elevation? If you do head elevation, the pharyngeal and laryngeal axis come closer. They become parallel to each other. If you just do a head elevation in neutral position. So if you do extension in the same position, that is a head elevation with extension, the oral, pharyngeal and laryngeal axis come parallel to each other, where it will be easy to perform the rigid bronchoscopy. So this is the difference. If you just do a neck extension in supine without head elevation, the oral and pharyngeal laryngeal axis are not in parallel to each other. Whereas if you do head elevation with an extension, all three axes come parallel to each other. So how do you do a rigid bronchoscopy integration? This is one of the technique. Is a classical rigid bronchoscopic technique. This is performed by Jean-Francois Dumont. I took it from Broncho Training website. So how do you do? First, you protect the incisor teeth, upper teeth, with a finger. So you pass the rigid bronchoscopy straight down. You can see the uvula and the posterior wall of the pharynx over the finger so that you don't injure the incisors. So once you see the epiglottis, go under the epiglottis. So you lift the epiglottis to visualize the area epiglottic folds and also the glottis. So once you see the vocal clots and glottis, rotate your bronchoscope bevel 90 degrees so that you don't injure the glottis. So this is Dr. Jean-Francois Dumont performing a rigid bronchoscopy. So you pass straight down, so that you see the posterior pharyngeal wall. So that's the uvula, and that's the base of the tongue. So this is the posterior pharyngeal wall. So once you pass inside, you just lift the tongue anteriorly. Don't use teeth as a fulcrum. Use your finger. So once you see the epiglottis, you go under the epiglottis to see the area epiglottic folds. So once you see the area epiglottic fold, push the tongue anteriorly to see the vocal cords and the glottis. So once you see the vocal cords and the glottis, rotate your bronchoscope bevel 90 degrees so that you don't injure the vocal cords. So this is the classical rigid bronchoscopic intubation. So what are the other modalities? You can use your laryngoscope to visualize the vocal cords and pass the bronchoscope. So that we usually do for intubating in pediatric. So few case example where rigid bronchoscopy was really a lifesaver. So this was an adult with a right paratracheal lesion, underwent a CT-guided FNAC with a 22 gauge needle. So post procedure, he had a hypoxia. He was shifted here. By the time he shifted, it was in severe gasping. So intubated, and it was very difficult to ventilate. So he thought it is bleeding inside the airway. We shifted to the OT and did intubated him and did a bronchoscope. So once we see the bronchoscope, you can see a large clot inside the proximal trachea. So that's a large clot inside the proximal trachea. Yes, it was very difficult to ventilate in this time. So we thought we'll just use a cryo to remove this clot. It was a very large clot, but we failed to remove the clot. So once you fail to remove the clot, the best tool is to perform a rigid bronchoscopy. So we perform rigid bronchoscopy as fast as possible. So once you see in the proximal airway, you see a large blood clot. So it was easily removed within forceps. So this was basically a 10-inch blood clot inside the tracheobronchial tree. It was a tracheobronchial cast, a big cast. It was really a lifesaver for him. So the patient went home happily after 2 days. So another case where you integrate rigid bronchoscopy with other hot and cold therapies. So this was an middle-aged male around 50 years with a midtracheal squamous tumor. So it was big enough to cause a severe stridor. So what you can see in bronchoscopy, you can see midtracheal large mass occluding the proximal mid-trachea. So what we have performed was to use a laser to photocoagulate initially, followed by vaporization and coring. So post-coring, you can see a good luminization. Once you feel the lumen is enough, you can place a self-expandable metallic stent so that to protect the lumen. So patient eventually went for radiotherapy and he has a good recovery. Still under follow-up, we removed the stent because the trachea has become normal. So coming to the second part, that's the airway foreign body and different techniques. So this is what the agenda would be. So introduction for airway foreign bodies, different techniques. So introduction, we all know foreign body aspiration is a potentially life-threatening event because it blocks the airway, causing obstruction. More common in children than in adults. You should have careful assessment, otherwise you will miss most of the foreign bodies. The clinical features, most common features are cough and wheezing, and classical triad like wheezing, cough, and diminished breath sounds are not universally present. The most important finding in clinical examination for airway foreign body is this regional variation of aeration is most important clue. And often only if you take some time, you can get through this. So how does the foreign body present? It all depends upon the age of the child, whether the event was witnessed or not, what are the type of foreign body aspirated, time of event, degree of airway blockage, and location of object. This is how the clinical feature depends. So what are the common sites of foreign body? Most of the foreign bodies are seen inside the bronchi because this just goes straight down in the children. Laryngeal trachea are often less common because they are, unless it is a large airway foreign body, it doesn't obstruct the larynx or the trachea. The most common would be the right lung, where the right main bronchus is in line with the trachea. So coming to the first radiography, how good is the chest X-ray? If you see this 6 X-rays, X-ray 2, X-ray 4, and X-ray 6, there are some chest findings. In X-ray 2, you have a collapse. In X-ray 4, you have some consolidation collapse, and X-ray 6, you have an hyperlucency of the left side. So basically, these are collapse and obstructive hyperinflation. But 1, 3, and 5 are still almost normal-looking chest X-ray. Believe me, this is all 6 cases are diagnosed with airway foreign body. So based on the chest X-ray, never rule out any foreign body aspiration. So instrumentation, what are different instruments helpful for foreign body removal? We have flexible instruments and rigid instruments. So in the flexible instrument, we have different accessories. We have balloons, baskets, balloons, and forceps, and also other methods like cryo, tri-prongs, and grasp it forceps. We want to see how they can be used for removal of foreign bodies. But in the rigid bronchoscopy, we have different types of optical forceps, peanut forceps, and the artery forceps. So when it has to be used, we'll discuss it later. So how to approach a case of foreign body? The most important thing is a presentation, whether it is an emergent situation or in a presentation with a minimal symptom. In an emergent situation, a near arrest condition, you need to act as fast as possible. Otherwise, you don't have any control of the airway, you will lose the case. Obviously, history is most important. Most of the times, history is not present in most of the cases of foreign body, and more than 50% of the times, we don't have any history of aspiration. Age, yes, age is most important because in pediatrics, it all depends upon the size of the instrument you use. As the age comes down, you have to use the minimum size bronchoscope so that you can pass inside the airway, you can remove it. Consciousness, tachypnea, and oxygenation, everything depends upon the type of the foreign body and the site where it has been occluded. So the most important point is regional variation of aeration. This has to you have to take some time to clinically auscultate, and otherwise you will miss the regional variation of aeration. Radiography is important, but not in every case. I don't do chest CTs in most of my cases. Chest X-ray is more than sufficient. If you have a suspicion of a foreign body, better to visualize the airway. So if you find a normal chest X-ray, always go back to the child and auscultate on both sides whether there is a regional variation of aeration. If there is a regional variation of aeration, it's a very indication of foreign body aspiration. So coming to the different tools, how it can be used. So we have two different types of instruments, that is the baskets. One is a four-wire basket. So how do you use a four-wire basket? So when you are using a four-wire basket, so what you have to do initially, you have to pass the basket distally. So you have to pass the basket distally and open distally and try to pull proximal. So when you're pulling proximal, you do a jiggling maneuver so that you can incorporate the foreign body inside the four wires and you can extract it. So there is something called as a proximal opening basket. So in this proximal opening basket, you don't pass the basket distally. So you go near the foreign body, open the basket, push it down, try to catch the foreign body and extract. So this is the main difference between distal opening and the proximal opening baskets. There are two available right now. The other most common instrument what we use is forceps. So when do you use forceps? When you have a sharp border. When you have a foreign body with a sharp border, that is the best tool to use a forceps. Just a tip, whenever you're using a forceps, always remember, so this is the angle of the forceps. Always make sure that you hold the foreign body at the angle so that you have a very good grip. So next is the balloon. So how do you use a balloon? So you can use the balloon in two techniques. So one, basically use the balloon to dislodge the impacted foreign body. So once you dislodge the impacted foreign body, you can have other tools to removal. And also, if you have a foreign body with a hole, you can pass the balloon down inside and remove. I'll show you a case later. So when do you use a cryo? When you have an organic foreign body with a water content, you can freeze the foreign body and try to remove. But be cautious if you are using cryo. Always make sure that you don't touch the wall. If you touch the wall, if you inadvertently remove, especially in children, it can cause severe bleeding. So when do you use an optical forceps in rigid bronchoscopy? So this is an artery forceps that has serrated jaw. So this is used for hard foreign bodies like this Sitaphal seed, this plastic cylinder, or a steel or a metallic part. So this has a very, very good grip. So this is the best because of the serrated jaws. It has a very good grip. So it can be used when the foreign body is a hard foreign body. So what if you have a soft foreign body like peanuts? You have an optical peanut forceps. So it does not crush the foreign body. So you can hold the foreign body and try to remove it. So always remember when you're holding, when you're catching the foreign body, always remember try to open and hold it at the angle. So never hold it with the teeth. So if you hold it with the teeth, what happens? You can inadvertently lose the foreign body inside the airway again. So if you have a case of a foreign body, if you're suspecting the case of foreign body, if you get this type of chest X-ray, it's most often missed. But if you have this type of chest X-ray, it can be easily picked up. So these are the cases of obstructive hyperinflation. With subtle findings, it is difficult to pick up. Now, always I say, whenever you're finding difficult to interpret the chest X-ray, go back to the patient and auscultate. If you find regional variation of variation with this chest X-ray, you can pick up cases. So obviously this was in peanut inside the right main bronchus. This is obstructive hyperinflation. Why this comes? Because it is not tightly impacted. There is some amount of space. So during inspiration, the air goes inside. During expiration, there is some kind of valve mechanism so that the air gets trapped inside the lung. So this is called obstructive hyperinflation. So this was removed with an optical forceps. So what about this X-ray? So this you can see a collapse of the left side of the lung. So when you have this kind of foreign bodies, they are very hard and tightly impacted where you can't pass any balloon baskets to remove this. You require a very robust instrument like this optical forceps to remove it in piecemeal. So when you have a tightly impacted foreign body, it is very difficult to remove. So other tools can be used because it is an organic foreign body. You can use a cryo to try to remove it. So if there is some space between the airway lumen and the foreign body, you can pass a balloon and try to inflate the balloon distally and pull it proximally so that foreign body gets disimpacted. So once it disimpacts, you can remove with other tools. If you are not able to pass the balloon to disimpact it, just use an optical forceps to remove it in piecemeal. So this was an elderly male diabetic. So he was using this gallnut we call karakaya during sleep for cough. He has aspirated it. So it was a hard time to remove. It was severe ulceration inside the airway. So the best tool for tightly impacted foreign body is an optical forceps. You can do a piecemeal extraction. So again, this is a case of collapse and foreign body aspiration, but there is a problem. The 15-month baby, sudden onset of breathlessness, no history of foreign body aspiration, but it is very difficult to ventilate. Remember, even with the collapse, usually you don't find difficulty in ventilation because the other lung is normal. You won't have very bad oxygen levels, and baby can still breathe. What if you find a collapse and you're not able to ventilate? So you need to understand this. There can be a migratory foreign body or a bilateral foreign body. So always keep it in mind when you have a collapse or obstructive hyperinflation. It was very, very difficult to ventilate or the patient in severe gasping. Always have in mind of migratory foreign body or bilateral foreign body. What if the baby has persistent cough? 15-month child present with history of aspiration of Sitaphal seed. Cough, no dyspnea, no chest pain, not in distress, clinically stable. X-ray was commented as normal, CT was not done, planned for bronchoscopy. And the next day morning, the mother informed the baby has passed Sitaphal seeds in the feces. So they go home and refuses bronchoscopy for 3 weeks. and they come back for a persistent cough only to see a foreign body impacted in the right intermediate bronchus. So always remember, when you have a persistent airway symptoms, always better to examine the airway when there is a history of foreign body. So if you have a foreign body with a central hole, this is a foreign body with a pearl bead. You can see a central hole inside the foreign body. So what you can do, you can pass the balloon inside the hole, inflate it. So once you inflate it, you have a very good grip of foreign body inside the airway, and you can just pull it in meal. So just pass the balloon inside the airway, inside the foreign body. So you inflate it and you can easily remove it. It doesn't really take much time. So if you don't have a balloon, so what are the different tools? You can pass an forceps, open the forceps and remove it. So this, I call it as a polo technique. It's easy to do. So this is a very interesting case. It's a case of a bilateral foreign body. You can see a 2-year-old child presented with almost near arrest, intubated in the ER, or you can see a consolidation and endotracheal tube inside the trachea. So once you go down, so the endotracheal tube is between the right main bronchus. What you can see, an obstruction here in the right intermediate bronchus, another obstruction in the left main bronchus. So this is a case of bilateral airway foreign body. So initially, the first obstruction was on the right intermediate bronchus and the left main bronchus. So this is during immediate bronchoscopy, the right upper lobe is spared so that you can able to ventilate the right lung. So what happened was, when trying to remove, we inadvertently pushed the foreign body deep down, but it was really helpful because we were able to now maintain the ventilation. So it took some time, so that we had a very tough time to maintain ventilation initially. Once we could just push, inadvertently push the foreign body inside, we were able to maintain the ventilation. So we removed the right lower lobe foreign body with an optical forceps. I was catching with teeth initial because I can't open the forceps deep down. So once I pull it in the main bronchus, you hold it tight and remove it. The second foreign body, it went inside the left lower lobe where I can't pass the rigid bronchoscopy. So what I did was to pass a balloon deep down in the left lower lobe, inflate the balloon so that to pull the foreign body inside the trachea and extract it with a basket. So this is a technique where you can combine different tools to extract the foreign bodies. So what you have to do when you suspect a tracheal foreign body. So this is a 12-month child, sudden onset of breathlessness, mother suspect foreign bodies. 8 hours after presentation, baby was unconscious, gasping and severe stridor. Saturation was 70 on room air, absent breath sounds on both sides. We suspected a laryngeal or tracheal foreign body. Immediately we took it for rigid bronchoscopy under general anesthesia. So what you can see is a large Sitaphal seed inside the airway. So once you see a large Sitaphal seed impacted in the subglottis, so don't try to catch initially. So inadvertently you will push it distally. So the main problem here is difficulty in ventilation. First you have to have a control of ventilation. Otherwise you don't have much time. You lose the airway and you lose the child. So what you have to do in this case is, the widest part in the airway is still the lower end of the trachea, where you have the widest part. You place the foreign body at the widest part, that's the lower end of the trachea. Now you're able to see the left main bronchus and the right main bronchus opening. So now pushing the foreign body inside down, I could able to ventilate the child. Once the oxygenation comes to normal, then with the help of an optical forceps, because it is a Sitaphal seed, is a hard foreign body, and optical artery forceps has a very good grip, so I could able to remove it easily. So what we have to learn here, so never try to remove a foreign body when there is an airway compromise. Always airway is the first priority. So maintain the ventilation first, then attempt removal. So foreign body also can be presented with mediastinal and subcutaneous emphysema. This was a young girl presented with severe extensive mediastinal emphysema, very short duration. In the CT scan, you can see that's the lower end of the trachea. In the right main bronchus, there is an opacity, and the left main bronchus is open. And the right intermediate bronchus and the left main bronchus is open. So there is a foreign body inside the right main bronchus. So extracted with the optical forceps. So what you need to do when you suspect a foreign body, when you are having a mediastinal or a subcutaneous emphysema, if you see a pneumothorax, immediately place a chest drain before doing a procedure. But if you see mediastinal emphysema or subcutaneous emphysema, you just have to go ahead, but you have to control the ventilation, because you can cause more mediastinal emphysema when you're using a jet ventilation. So this is immediately after extraction the next day. So young child presenting with the mediastinal subcutaneous emphysema always think foreign body aspiration as a differential diagnosis. So what are the techniques to removal of sharp objects? So this is a pin inside the right intermediate bronchus. So how do you remove this? So the best way is to secure the sharp object inside the airway. So how do you secure the sharp object inside the airway? So with the help of an endotracheal tube and the bronchoscope, so you catch hold of the sharp object and safely retrieve the sharp objects inside the endotracheal tube. So once you safely retrieve the sharp object inside the endotracheal tube, it is very easy to remove so that you won't cause any injury to the trachea. So these are a case example of a failed rigid bronchoscope. So this is an 18-month child underwent 6 kgs, 30 days impacted left distal main bronchus foreign body, a half peanut. You can see an extensive obstructive emphysema, hyperinflation. So what we're trying to do is trying to catch hold of the foreign body inside the left main bronchus, because my artery forceps, my peanut was not opening inside the left main bronchus. I had to use a flexible bronchoscope to pass a basket distally, open it and remove it. So never think only with the rigid bronchoscope you can perform all procedures. So both rigid and flexible are complementary to each other. Nothing is superior. So this is another case of failed flexible bronchoscope. So this is a 5-year-old child with 25 days impacted plastic cap in the right main bronchus. Initially tried with a basket, it failed because and when you're removing the basket, because the cap was much larger and there was a subglottic edema, every time we try to remove through the subglottis, the foreign body falls back. So we have to use a robust instrument, that's a rigid bronchoscopy optical forceps, to remove the foreign body. So this will be my last case. So this is a foreign body impacted in a young small child. It's a foreign body vessel. 4-year-old child presented with history of aspiration of vessel followed by stridor. Presented to ER around 1 a.m. So 8 hours after the aspiration, baby was conscious, stridor with whistling sound at rest. I hope you can hear that whistling sound. Baby was absolutely fine at this stage. So there was a rapid deterioration in just 30 minutes of presentation in the ER. So baby had hypoxia. It was requiring 15 liters of oxygen to maintain saturation of 80%, almost becoming altered consciousness with a PCO2 of 60. So what do you do in this type? You have to shift as soon as possible, because you have a whistling sound and it is a subglottic foreign body, it is impacted. If you don't have a control over the airway, you're going to lose this child. So we took for emergency rigid bronchoscopy under jet ventilation. So what we did was not to attempt to remove the foreign body in the first go. As I told you, it was impacting the subglottis. First thing is to push the foreign body inside the airway to control the airway, to take care of the ventilation part. Then you can plan for removal. So once we pushed it inside, we tried to remove it with an optical artery forceps. We tried to catch one edge of the vessel because it is a hard plastic object. We tried to catch one edge, also tried to catch the full part of the vessel, but we could not able to remove. We did multiple attempts. The vessel doesn't come over the subglottis. Every time we pull near the subglottis, vessel slips down. So that is because of the narrowing at the level of subglottis, probably because of the edema where it is tightly impacted. After multiple attempts with an optical forceps, the disaster struck. So again, after almost, you can see, after multiple attempts, we are trying to hold the forceps, we are trying to hold the vessel. You can see the optical forceps jaw broke. Now there is a second foreign body inside the airway, and I have lost my optical forceps. Luckily, in this case, I had a standby optical forceps. I used the optical forceps to remove the first, the broken jaw inside the airway first. So every time I remove it, an optical forceps, it just slips inside. So what do you do now? So now you have a broken optical forceps and the jaw has been extracted. What are the other options? So can you use a balloon? You can use, but you might bound to fail because it is very, very difficult to remove because balloon doesn't have a very good power to extract over the tight subglottis. The same way with the basket. Basket also will fail. So what is the problem? The problem is because you're not able to retrieve the foreign body through the subglottis. Why? Because of subglottic edema. So why subglottic edema? Because the foreign body has been impacted in the subglottis for nearly 8 hours. So prolonged impaction of the subglottis and also with multiple attempts with a rigid bronchoscope. So what next? Obviously, the first option would be a tracheostomy. So we tried calling ENT surgeon at that point in time. It's almost like 2 o'clock in the morning. So we could not get an ENT surgeon. So what we have done was to serially dilate the subglottis with increasing size of the bronchoscope. So as I've told you, in pediatric bronchoscope, we have different size. You have this 3.5, 4, and 5 size in a pediatric bronchoscope. I use the increasing size of bronchoscope to dilate the subglottis. So with the first bronchoscope, so you pass just to dilate the subglottis. So you're not planning to remove the foreign body, you're just only dilating the subglottis. So once you dilate with one bronchoscope, you change over and you change with an other bronchoscope. So once you have dilated to the maximum size, so it was very easy to remove the foreign body at this point in time. It was basically a foreign body vessel. So what are the important points in this case? So impacted subglottic foreign bodies are very dangerous. Even when the symptoms are not severe, can worsen in no time. So in subglottic edema, foreign body can't be extracted. Serial dilatation of subglottis can be tried before tracheostomy. Always have a spare instrument in hand. So to summarize, airway foreign bodies should be suspected in children when you have sudden onset of low respiratory symptoms. History of choking is highly suggestive of foreign body aspiration. Absence of choking history does not rule out foreign body aspiration. Presence of asphyxia indicates the need for immediate resuscitation and examination of the airway. Normal radiological studies does not exclude the presence of an aspirated foreign body. So radiology may aid in diagnosis, but bronchoscopy should be performed in foreign body aspiration even if the radiology studies are normal. For short foreign bodies, secure the foreign body inside the airway before retrieval. So there is no single best instrument for all foreign bodies. Rigid or flexible, none is superior over other. Either can fail. So both are complementary to each other. Many thanks for your patient listening. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. That was an excellent presentation by Dr. Balaraju, who really explained nuances of a rigid bronchoscopy and showed some really interesting cases. And now on to the question answer sessions. And we have a lot of questions which are coming up and a lot of people who have really logged in. So myself, Dr. Gaurav, I'm practicing. So I'll begin with some questions which are really interesting from Dr. Balaraju. The first of it is how to manage ventilation during foreign body removal in pediatric cases. Over to Balaraju.
Most of the times it all depends upon anesthesia setup you have. So if the anesthetist who is so confident in giving a jet ventilation, I always tell them just go ahead and do whatever you're confident. So, but if he says that he wants to do a Bain ventilation, that's a normal ventilation from the workstation, so you can do it. But my personal preference is to do a jet ventilation because I feel that you can have a better control of the airway. So even if there is an hypoxia, it's very easy to maintain the oxygen saturation with a jet ventilation rather than an ventilation from the workstation. And next point was you need to be very, very cautious when you are doing a jet ventilation in rigid bronchoscopy. You should not have a very high pressure flow. So that can damage the lungs with barotrauma. So that's what I say. It's personal preference. If your anesthetist is very confident in doing a jet ventilation, I always prefer a jet ventilation. So if you are doing a flexible bronchoscopy and you have to do anesthesia for that, so there are two ways. So the first thing is try to avoid an endotracheal tube in pediatrics, especially. So what happens if you use an endotracheal tube? Now your channel inside the endotracheal tube has come down. So your bronchoscope will not fit inside the endotracheal tube. So, and probably you cannot deliver the oxygen, nor you can pass your bronchoscope. So the best way would be use an laryngeal airway, either an iGel or some kind of supraglottic device, so that you have a better lumen and you can ventilate and you can pass your instrument. So that it all depends upon the size of the bronchoscope you use. Let us think, if you use the smallest of the small bronchoscope, probably you're not able to pass many instruments. But if you use a good 4 mm bronchoscope with a 2 mm working channel, and most of the time in pediatrics, you can do a good stuff because all your accessories will go. But if you're doing at a very, very lesser age, so probably you need to use a 2.8 and 1.2 bronchoscope. In that, only instrument what goes freely is the basket. So there are no other instruments for that working channel to remove airway foreign bodies. Hardly you have a forceps or anything. Even if you have a forceps, it is very, very, very small and probably not able to have a good grip with the forceps. So my take on ventilation, because my personal preference is always a rigid bronchoscopy. I do rigid bronchoscopy by default for any airway foreign body. So if I have problems doing a rigid bronchoscopy, then I switch over to flexible. So you don't have to remove the rigid bronchoscopy. Just use the rigid bronchoscope as a conduit and take your flexible and pass just into it. So the advantage of using a jet ventilation, because once you have a conduit inside the airway with the rigid bronchoscope, you can do jet ventilation. At the same time, you can pass your flexible bronchoscope.
So that was a great practical tip by Dr. Bala Raju. And we all understand when we are doing a flexible or a rigid bronchoscopy, we all need to have a whole armamentarium of instrumentation with us before going on to manage cases of foreign bodies and other tumors in the larynx, tumors near the in the trachea. So next question by Dr. V.K. Sinha from Jamshedpur is, elaborate the uses of rigid bronchoscopy in the present day situation.
So I try to make it as simple as possible. My indications, I only feel that, when do you use a rigid bronchoscope? When there is an issue in the airway. So what will be the issues, either in a foreign body aspiration or something obstructing the airway lumen, or you are losing airway lumen with some extraluminal causes or intraluminal causes. So those will be your generalized indications for rigid bronchoscopy. So when you want to do a therapeutic procedure, or you want to use a rigid bronchoscope as a conduit. So let us think, if you are doing a transbronchial cryolung biopsy, so the safest conduit is still a rigid bronchoscope, where you have a very, very good control of the airway when there is a torrential bleed. So you can pass in the instruments immediately. You can pass your balloon. So balloon is always there. So even when you're doing cryo. So I feel that airway control is much better with a rigid bronchoscope than with an ET tube. So to generalize those indications, I feel anything obstructing the airway or intraluminally or extraluminally, so that will be an indication for doing a perform rigid bronchoscopy.
Absolutely fantastic, sir. So do you think in a present day scenario, there is any contraindication to a rigid bronchoscopy?
So I feel the only contraindication is when you can't pass a rigid bronchoscope inside the airway. So that will be either cervical and neck related issues, or you're not getting an extension. So that will be the only contraindication, absolute contraindication for doing rigid bronchoscopy. I feel rigid bronchoscopy is a lifesaver device, a system. So when you have a crashing patient, so to maintain the airway, yes, you can do an endotracheal tube. I don't deny that. But still, if you put your rigid bronchoscope, the instrumentation, what you pass next, will be much, much easier when you're doing a rigid bronchoscopy as a conduit than doing an endotracheal tube. That's my take on that.
Then there is one question from Dr. Narendra. is how about long-standing foreign body removal techniques after granulations?
So those are very, very tricky cases. So what happens, it all depends upon the foreign body has been type of foreign body ingested. Let us think if they are very inert foreign bodies, they do not cross much of the granulation. So most of the impaction happens either in the bronchi, so or in the lower bronchi or in the main bronchi. It depends upon the age of the child and size of the foreign body. So if there are granulation, so you can fairly say, so what happens initially, there will be granulation followed by cicatrization. So these are two different things. If there is a granulation, so you manage the granulation first, as we do in any case of airway tumor or whatever. You use a hot therapy or a cold therapy, try to remove the granulation as much as possible so that you can have a very good idea of where to catch the foreign body. See, I always say that if you have a sharp border of a foreign body, any sharp border, the best instrument for you to use, I mean to say an impacted foreign body. So impacted foreign body having a sharp border, once you remove those granulation with a hot and cold instruments, so that will, the best instrument would be still a rigid optical forceps, artery optical forceps, so that you can have the maximum grip and the force to extract the foreign body. So let us think if it is a cicatrization, proximal cicatrization. So if there is cicatrization and fibrosis, so best thing would be, as we do for your stenosis in lobar, in the main trachea. So you use a cautery device, a knife or something, to slightly cut it and try to dilate with the balloon and try to extract the foreign body. So let us think if you have a foreign body which is tightly impacted and there is less granulation and you're not able to pass any flexible instrumentation behind the foreign body. What I mean to say, in the bronchus, if you have a foreign body and if there is a small edge where you can pass an instrument, you can pass a balloon deep inside the bronchus, inflate it and try to pull the balloon. So if it is tightly impacted, so this procedure will fail. So if the foreign body is loosely impacted, and you can disimpact the foreign body and extract with the other instrument. But if it is tightly impacted, most of the times your flexible instruments will fail. So the best technique in those situations is, what you can do two ways. Either you can use your cryo to extract piecemeal, or you can use an artery forceps, optical forceps, to extract piecemeal. So that's what I have shown you one case where the gentleman has aspirated a gallnut that's called karakaya in our place. So this is basically used for cough medication. They usually keep it in the mouth and just sleep overnight, and this fellow has aspirated and landed up in collapse. So he did not do, when he aspirated, absolutely no symptoms. So what I did initially was, I was trying to pass a basket or a balloon deep inside it, but I'm not able to do it. So what I did was to extract piecemeal. So to make it piecemeal, whatever technique you use safely, some people have used a laser to cut the device, to cut the foreign body into two and to extract. Some people have used a cautery to cut the foreign body into two and extract. And some people have used a cryo to make it pieces and extract. So the best technique, I always feel that piecemeal technique, if it is impacted foreign body, it will be the best.
So that is all. That you should understand, that the armamentarium is so important when you are dealing with foreign body, because what you don't know what is there when you go inside. It is when you go inside you find a lot of complications. You may find granulations, you may find a foreign body which is stuck up, and for this you don't feel sorry in front of the patient's attendant. It is best that you have the whole armamentarium. So the next thing, Dr. Balaraju, I would like to ask is, what are the basic accessories that you require in a flexible bronchoscope for a foreign body removal? It will be really important that we all know that at least we should have these basic accessories when we go inside taking out a foreign body.
So to basically say that before we talk about accessories, we need to know what bronchoscope you need to use for pediatric. I'd say it is generalized. So if you say for an adult case, so we always have a therapeutic bronchoscope for us, which is 2.8 working channel, So every instrument will go in the 2.8 working channel. So you don't have to worry much for that. So if you are doing a pediatric cases, so the best bronchoscope would be a 4 mm, 2 mm working channel bronchoscope, where if you have a minimum 2 mm working channel bronchoscope, most of your accessories pass. So what are the accessories you need to have? So I feel the best accessory for doing a foreign body in pediatric is, I still feel, the basket. So the basket would be the best accessory, followed by balloon and forceps. So these three are the basic accessories you should have to do a foreign body, because we don't know what instrument has will use at that time. So once I say basket, balloon, and forceps, so now you need to understand what working channel bronchoscope I have and what basket and what what basket and what balloon I can pass through it. So you have different sizes of basket. The best baskets are the 1 mm nitinol baskets. So they basically, you can classify them into two baskets. That's what I shown in my video. So one is a 4-wire basket. So that's a nitinol 4-wire basket. The another is the proximal opening basket. So both are very, very good instruments. The 1 mm, basically they are not designed for us. So they are designed for ureteric stone calculate, but they work fantastically good. So they pass, you can pass them in 2.8, 1.2 working channel bronchoscope. So the outer diameter is just 1 mm, and they are very good. So most of the times your job, if it is a loosely impacted foreign body in one of the bronchus in a child, so if you have a basket in hand, most of the time your job is done. So if you have an impacted foreign body, you pass the balloon deep inside and try to dislodge the foreign body proximally, and you can use the basket to retrieve. Or if you have a sharp border foreign body or a plastic foreign body, you can use your forceps to retrieve it. So again, I said the forceps, what forceps you require. So the biopsy forceps, what we use daily for our bronchoscope biopsy, that is good enough to retrieve most of the foreign bodies. You can have all fancy foreign body instruments like alligator, crocodile forceps, all that stuff. But basically, whatever instrument you have, if you use correctly, I feel it will function. The other flexible instruments like tri-prong, grasp it, forceps, they're all fancy stuff, but most of the times you require these three main things. So these three main things are important. The other one I forgot to tell is the cryo. So my own problem with cryo is I'm very, very cautious in using a cryo in a pediatric case. So if you're doing a pediatric foreign body, the cryo can be passed through a 2 mm working channel bronchoscope, our 1.9 cryo. The only problem is you need to be very, very careful that you should not touch the bronchial wall. So if you touch the bronchial wall and you freeze the foreign body, and inadvertently if you pull it, there will be a very bad situation left there. So I feel if you have a better instrument and a safer instrument, I always feel to use that. So till now, I didn't feel that I have to use only cryo to remove a pediatric foreign body. So till now that condition didn't come. So probably I will not say I will not use it. I always see that if I can able to perform the procedure with a safer instruments, so I have a less complications, I always prefer that. Yes, I have used cryo in pediatric in some cases where I had to do a piecemeal extraction. Cryos, I told you can cut it easily. Once you freeze, that part is freeze and it's stuck to the probe and you can remove it. But you should be always careful not to touch the bronchial wall mucosa.
So we have a question from Dr. Nufal from Kozhikode, which we hear commonly in CCI.
Yeah.
The different age groups and diameters of rigid bronchoscopes and flexible that you prefer to use. Do you prefer to use as per the age or as per the height? What is your criteria?
So I really don't look at it. I don't go to the chart and see which bronchoscope goes inside. So the best would be, so if it is a 2-year child, less than 2-year child, so the best would be the 2.8 and 1.2.
Okay.
That's the best bronchoscope, because you need to understand it's not just performing the procedure and to selecting the bronchoscope. I always say that you need to have a ventilation system when you're doing a procedure. So once you're dealing with a foreign body, my top priority is to secure the airway. So once you secure the airway, you have time for you to perform the procedure. So if you want to secure the airway, let us think you're not able to put an eye gel. So if you're not able to put an IGL and you have to put an ET tube while performing a flexible, your 4 mm, 2 mm will not pass through your ET tube. So at that, it all depends upon what ET tube you have, what IGL you have. So how do you ventilate? Let us think if you're performing in a sedation, then you're not using any kind of supraglottic device or an endotracheal tube. I'm not saying for a foreign body, I will not never do that, but I know many people are doing in West End and Middle East. But I'm not so happy doing just in sedation. I always secure the airway first, then only perform it. I told you my bias. I always do the rigid bronchoscopy than flexible. But I feel it's much easier for me to perform it. But if you are doing flexible, I feel you should have two bronchoscopes. The first one would be 2.8, 1.2 working channel bronchoscope, and another one is 4 and 2 mm. If you have these two bronchoscopes, I think you can do any kind of pediatric foreign body.
So an interesting question is, if you have a sharp foreign body which has pierced the trachea or lung, what will be your way of removing it?
Yeah, so I did not show those pierced foreign bodies because I showed the case, the pin case, so that was loosely in the airway. It is something like this. The concept is the same. So whenever you are dealing with a sharp foreign body inside the airway, the only criteria, the only problem you have is to secure the foreign body safely inside the airway. So that's the main point you need to understand. You need to secure the foreign body inside the airway. So let us think if the pin has pierced the mucosa. So what I would have done, so I would have catched it proximally and pushed it distally slowly so that it just disimpacts the mucosa. So most of the time, the impaction would be proximal than distal. So you take any, because I can show some cases if there is time, but most of the time the impaction will be proximal than distal. So what happens when the pin goes inside, the heaviest part goes deep inside first. The heaviest part would be that plastic part, it just goes, and the sharp one will be proximal. And this sharp one can penetrate the bronchial mucosa. So again, it is the same technique. You secure the foreign body inside the airway. Either you can use an endotracheal tube or a rigid bronchoscope. You secure it inside the rigid bronchoscope or an endotracheal tube and extract the whole unit out so that you don't damage either the bronchoscope or the patient trachea. Sorry.
So that was great. Then there is a question from Dr. Ajay Lanjewar from Nagpur, that if a nail goes beyond the segmental bronchus in adult, what will be the way around?
I'm sorry?
If a nail, N-A-I-L, nail.
Yeah,
if a nail goes up.
Yeah, I did not show that case. So those are interesting cases. So now what we are talking about are distal foreign bodies. So now what we have seen all are proximal foreign bodies. That's in the trachea, bronchi, or in the lower segmental bronchi. So let us think it has just gone subsegmental. So most commonly, the most common subsegmental foreign bodies would be all this nose pin or an ear pin. So all these small balls. So those can go deep inside the airway. You will be very happy if it is a metallic foreign body. I'll tell you why. So if it is a metallic foreign body, so now you have a radio opaque material. So I can use a CM to guide me how to go inside the airway. So that is one main advantage. If you have a metallic foreign body and it is a distal. So what are the techniques to be followed when you have a distal airway foreign body? The best thing is to map the airway. So how do you map the airway? You map the airway with a CT scan. So before performing the procedure, you map the airway and you isolate the segment, with subsegment. So you map it so that you know where to go. So now comes the problem. So how to go inside? So now you need to have a smaller bronchoscope, which you can go much distally and try to see it. So I feel the best bronchoscope would be still a 4 mm, 2 mm in this case. In 4 mm, 2 mm, most of your distal foreign bodies are in the lower lobes. You don't have a distal foreign bodies in the upper lobes. So these distal foreign bodies, if you use a 4 mm, 2 mm working channel bronchoscope, in the 2 mm working channel, you can pass your biopsy forceps. So this biopsy forceps or a basket or a balloon. So these three instruments will help you in performing the distal foreign bodies. Again, if you have a CM and it's a radio opaque material, you can use your CM, or if you don't have an image that you are not able to see the foreign body inside the bronchus and you're not able to go as near as possible, you can use your CM to guide your bronchoscope to the foreign body. So again, the same technique, you pass your forceps inside that bronchus. With the help of CM, you can try to catch hold of it and slowly extract. Or you can pass a balloon distally to that foreign body and try to disimpact, let it come proximal. Then you can use your basket and extract it, or a forceps and extract it. So these are the common techniques you use if you have a distal airway foreign body and it is what is a radio opaque. The problem comes when it is a radiolucent and you really don't know where it has gone inside. So once it is radiolucent and it's small pearl beads or small plastic objects and you can't use a fluoroscopy, so what you have to do, you need to go as distal as possible and to try to see. So that would be a approach to for a distal airway foreign bodies.
That was a wonderful elaboration of all the techniques in rigid bronchoscopy and the instrumentations that we can use to take out the foreign bodies. That was wonderful presentation, Dr. Balaraju, and thanks for such a masterclass, Dr. Balaraju. Thanks CCI for all the all managing, and thanks the CIPLA for coordinating all this. Thank you, Dr. CVK sir, Dr. Krishna sir, Dr. Atri, and all the CCI family. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thanks, Dr. Krishna, Dr. Vijay.